I think the music needs to be a little bit louder.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet for your normal.
From background checks to forms complete, every step ensures we meet the standards set to keep us safe. Compliance isn't just a race. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true.
Welcome to the Compliance Corner.
To keep our freedom shining through.
Yeah.
It's the Compliance Corner.
I may be biased, but I think that's one of your better songs.
Stay sharp, stay illegal. We know what we need.
I just got out of my the webinar with Greg in Retail Mastery, and he was very touched because his song has his name in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if your song does it have your name in it?
Oh, nice. No, it's all right. It doesn't need mine. It's good.
Oh, I think you need your name.
Nah.
So obviously we've got a lot to talk about, and again, I'm probably not going to be as engaging as I usually am because we had a really good Retail Mastery series right before this one, and it was it was a banger, and I am worn out. And Tony, I don't know if you saw, but I was getting some comments on I usually would just wear a black shirt, and I'm like,
Right.
you know what, I need to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. So I've got my Army Man shirt on right now. How do you like it?
I like it. It's good. I think I need to get me one of those.
It feels light and breezy, so it feels really good. And it
Absolutely.
absorbs odors really well. So we won't talk about that.
No.
My dog's not in here with me right now, and there's a good reason for that. But we will, we'll let you carry on with your deal here. So what are we going to talk about today?
So yeah, we've been talking about this back and forth, and the big thing of discussion is the repealing of the no tolerance policy, or the enhanced enforcement policy as they sold it out, but also a little bit of the other current events. It's almost like a Desperate Housewives of the ATF kind of drama thing going on, but I think some of the pieces are starting to fall into place if we look at this in total. So let's do a little bit of kind of recap of some current events, and then we'll talk specifically about that repeal. If you want to throw a screen up here. So a while back, we knew this was President Trump's executive order about protecting the Second Amendment. He ordered a review, Pam Bondi, the AG, to review a number of things related to the Second Amendment and what the ATF was doing and all that. And she was given, I think it was like 30 days, whatever it was, and then she asked for an extension. And there was some criticisms about what's going on. Why is it taking so long? Why haven't more decisions been made? And I think now we're seeing some things happen, and then it kind of explains that, but it kind of puts the pieces together and shows kind of where the progression is going. So first thing, if kind of looking back at how all this progressed, if we look at like the ATF leadership, when this all started, I believe her name was Pam Hicks. She was the chief counsel for the ATF at the time. She was one of the first ones that got the chop and block and got walked out of the ATF. And she would have been a person behind a lot of the rules and regulations and the no tolerance policy and enforcing that stuff, that would have come along. So probably good to see her go, but she was replaced with this gentleman here, Robert Lader. He's a well-known as a Second Amendment scholar, and some of the things he's done, some of the publications he's made had been in support of the Second Amendment and those principles along that. So that's a good change. And all in all, what we're hearing about him is he's going to be good in terms of, as their ATF's new chief counsel, really kind of setting the guidelines and making things are in line with the Second Amendment and stuff. So that's a good move. The other change we saw too was originally Kash Patel was put in as the acting director of the ATF. He had the FBI on top of it, and everybody thought that was good. And then we heard he got replaced with Dan Driscoll, who as the acting director, who is also Secretary of the Army. So there's a lot of people making a big issue of Kash Patel was replaced. That's huge. I don't really think it is. He was he was an interim. Again, so is Daniel. So there's a high possibility we may see a change here again. But there's another key piece that comes into this. And again, there's a question that comes up. Why does he keep putting these actings in? If you think about it, Kash Patel, Daniel Driscoll in their previous have already been through Senate confirmation. to get to be FBI director, for Daniel to get to be Secretary of the Army, they already went through Senate confirmation. So the ATF is traditionally been really hard to get a Senate confirmed ATF director into office. With these guys already being Senate confirmed, he can drop them into those acting roles, potentially move some things around. So we'll see how that plays out. But the biggest thing, looking at why is he putting those acting people in, is because it kept this guy out of running the ATF. So Marvin Richardson was the deputy director for quite a while. He was with the ATF for a really long time, and recently it has been announced that he has gone on and retired. Now, whether that was forced or he chose to, or whatever the case may be, I don't really care. But what's coming out after the fact is he may actually have been more instrumental and more influential behind the scenes in his role here and in the time where he was the acting director, of pushing forward things like the arm brace rule, the no tolerance policy, the frame and receiver rule, and all those other kind of things. So what we've seen is removal of the chief counsel and replaced with someone pro 2A. We've seen acting directors put in place that have prevented him from getting in office, and now he's been replaced. The new director, Robert Cicada, I don't know a lot about him other than the bio that's here and there, but so far I haven't really heard anything that's jumping out as major alarm. But Marvin Richardson leaving the ATF is, in my opinion, kind of huge. That's a big thing. He's been a mainstay there for a long, long time. So all of this in support of, if we think about it, we also know Pam Bondi announced the generation of the Second Amendment Task Force. Couple things I want to watch here and see how they play out. But again, another good thing. And again, looking at back, we get the influence of Marvin Richards, if he was truly as influential in getting some of those rules into play that were, if his influence is out, that previous chief counsel, that influences out, everything else like that. They are really in a position now to analyze what are they doing, not only in an enforcement aspect, but also legally. And you got to think about, there's a lot of cases that the ATF is chasing right now that started under the Biden era, that anti-gun Biden era, that are still going through process. One of them was the U.S. versus Peterson, and this is just a page I found. This is a suppressor deal, a suppressor case. He was caught in possession of an unregistered silencer. He pled guilty with some terms of that he could appeal and stuff like that. And it's kind of a weird deal, but just to get through this fast, his appeal was denied, and kind of the government's argument was that suppressors are not firearms and that he's not afforded the Second Amendment protections because of that. Now, that kind of flies in the face of everything we've heard with suppressors being under the NFA, because they talk about those being firearms, but then they want to put this argument, well, they don't actually fire around this, or are they accessory? And there's some danger to that argument. And one of the dangers we look at is if they actually can withhold the argument that they're not firearms and they're not afforded by the Second Amendment protections, then they can also be much easily banned. And that's a huge problem. So there's some danger in their argument. A lot of people jumped up and says, oh, cool, they can come off the NFA and buy them. Says, well, if they become a non-regulated accessory, what are they now open to otherwise? So we have to be careful here. But what's interesting is that the government petitioned the court that was involved in this for a 30-day stay for them to reconsider their position on this case. So now they're actually reconsidering that stance of the suppressors are not being afforded that Second Amendment protection. And that could be a direct result of what's going on with this task force, what's going on under his guidance, and so forth and so forth. You were about to say something, Joel, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
I hope we start looking into, like, because obviously we all know they want their cake and to eat it too, right? And
yep.
That they may think that is like a 5D chess move, right? All right, we got you now. So
right. So
which would basically put everything back in the state's lap. You know what I'm saying? Because they can literally outlaw whatever they want. And I don't know if too many things that they've like banned. I know there's probably a massive list of things that the government's banned. I just don't know what it is. Hopefully.
But if we look at like some of the assault weapons ban that survived legal challenges, like California, the 94 assault weapons ban that was in place at that sunset, they didn't ban rifles themselves. They've banned the features on the rifles. And that's how most of those were able to survive that.
Right.
So the argument of these aren't firearms can go in our favor, but they can very well go against our favor in terms
absolutely.
of possession. So
but again,
if
they do go in our or go against us, that's why it's very important to know what state you live in. Because I know that a state can turn around and say they can ban that all they want. They're legal here within these boundaries. So you guys are good.
Yeah. And I'm all for suppressors coming off an NFA registry. I think that would be cool. So yeah, Hunter, bring it. Got one sitting right over there. I would love to not have to worry about a tax stamp for it.
Right. Or a short-barreled rifle.
Well, and that brings us to this other case. So 2023, Taylor Toronto was arrested. He had a Scorpion with an arm brace on it.
Yeah.
So in 2023, the arm brace rule would have still been in effect. There's had since then time been a court ruling that has said that's bad. It needs to go away. Arm braces are legal again. However, here we are, April 2025. The government is still pushing that case, and not only the case of was he in possession of a illegal SBR, but they're also pushing from the DC law's perspective, because this occurred in Washington, DC, that he was also in possession of an unlawful pistol. So which is it? So between, and if you think about it, this case, it's a Biden era prosecutor that was doing it, probably the same one here. So again, the hope now that we have some more Second Amendment, insight into this pro Second Amendment, and then the task force looking at the Second Amendment issues. Hopefully it's going to take things like this and hopefully maybe change how they enforce these or how they're going to prosecute these or processing these cases, and maybe shift that mindset. We can hope. These are definitely 100% things we need to watch and need to be aware of. But hopefully, starts to move in our favor.
I was going to say something. I was just waiting for you to stop talking. Can you go back to that?
Oh, go ahead.
Does anybody have anything to say about the Kuna?
Actually, I've heard good things about it.
Have you? I have too.
Especially for the price point. I've heard a lot of good. I'm a lot of good things about it.
That's unheard of. Double stack 9mm, right?
Yep. And I think there's even places that have it even less than that out on the market right now. Those just got released to the public on Monday.
Blowback?
It's a roller delayed blowback. So it works
blowback.
It's a system kind of similar, a little different, but similar to an MP5 and how that functions. Yeah. But in a more modernized platform. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. I just wanted to know because it looks like they're spending a lot of money to get the name out there. I've seen a couple of videos on it. It's funny how those things just get popping up everywhere.
I live in Arizona, and I'm pretty sure I saw some dealers near me that had it at $8.99. I can't say for certain. I'm not going to say names just in case, but it's possible it could be out there.
Like a giveaway, just about.
Right.
Yeah, you're looking at, just to get back on that quickly, an MP5 would be what?
2,500.
Yeah, 25, 3,000, something like that.
For the genuine HK SP5, the civilian model out there. Yeah.
So $8.99 or $9.99 is not a bad idea for like a truck gun.
Nope, not at all.
All right. Back at it, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So task force. So Pam Bundy's task force. Again, this is more just following up on response to the executive order that they're going to review the Second Amendment and all that kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to see what spits out of this. There's one thing I would caution and to watch for, and that is kind of Pam Bondi's record as the Florida AG. Well, let's remember, while she was the Florida AG, she was opposed to efforts to make open carry legal in Florida. She, in post-Parkland, she was part of getting the age to buy rifles and long guns raised to 21. She was a big proponent of the red flag laws and passing the red flag laws in Florida. And remember, we've talked about this before. There's a video of her and Trump together where they are both supporting those red flag law issues. So
Yeah.
while I think there's a lot of room here for things, especially with the new chief counsel and everything, to kind of shift how the ATF is dealing with and how they're prosecuting some of these gun things and everything else, and hopefully do away with some of these crap rules, I would caution, let's wait and see, because if she is truly a proponent of those measures she passed in Florida, will they use this as a launching point to introduce some of that nationally? So I would 100% watch for that, just as a caution, because, we're going to be a little bit of conspiracy theorists, right? Aren't we, Joel? And I'm not fully going to trust
if
the
you're
government.
not by now, after just the past 10 years, not to mention the past 30, then you're
Yeah.
hopeless.
Right. But like I said, with the changes I think we've seen, now that we're seeing this full thing lay out, I think with the people who've walked or been walked, I think things are positioned to see kind of a good change overall in how things are done. And I think this is partially going to be part of what feeds into the repeal of the no tolerance policy. So, and what's cool, if you actually go and try to find what the no tolerance policy was, it's completely been out. It's changed. It's the information that's there is just completely gone now. So yeah. So, which is a good thing. So this has been repealed. This is not going to be the function. And let's talk about it. What did the no tolerance or the enhanced enforcement policy do? It focused on what they called the deadly sins. These are the things that the government believed were willful violations of the GCA or NFA or whatever that, and they came out and said, any kind of violation of these, even if it's one, will result in a revocation notice, and you'd have to fight for your license and everything else like that. So things became very stringent on that. Inspections, the frequency of inspections increased over the years under no tolerance policy. We saw that as well too. And things just became more and more strict. So with the repeal of this, overall, that's good. So hopefully we can get back away from that and get back to what we saw before, which was the kind of the normal focus of inspections. Now, the DOJ at Trump, they have not released a new directive to replace it. They've just said this has been repealed. And I've talked to a couple of dealers just in the past couple of days who have IOIs at their businesses doing inspections. The IOIs are still talking. They're still speaking the no tolerance language. Now, they may not be enforcing it. They may not be, oh, we're going to go get your license out of this, but that language is still out there. Because there hasn't, I don't think, and that could just be because that's been the habit of the couple of years. It could just be because there's not a new directive they can speak to necessarily. So there might be some time there. We need to see things adjust. Now, we do know at the field level, we know revocations have been put on hold, and there's been a number of things like that. There's been more stuff pushed back to the field offices for discretion, but ultimately that's what the big hope here. So what we really need to see, and what's really going to be to come out of this to really know how things are going to progress, is what is their new definition of willfulness going to be? What is that the new focus? So the new focus of how to conduct those inspections, instead of these looking for any one violation of these, what's going to be the totality, and again, the hope is, again, now the discretion will be moved back to the field offices and the IOIs to look at the totality of what's going on. So I remember when no tolerance passed, being at a conference and ATF leadership being up there stating a mistake is no longer an excuse, that you can't say that. There's no such thing as human error. If you sell 15,000 guns a year and you do all of them right except for one, then you had no excuse for the one. You shouldn't have done it. And then at the same time, if you've only done a couple hundred, then, well, you're not doing that many, so you really don't have an excuse to make mistakes. It was a no-win, really. So now, hopefully, this gets us back to kind of the mindset of what was before. Look at the totality of what's going on, take into account the human error, take into account that there are clerical errors. Someone misspells something right, fat finger something. That's not necessarily a willing or a willful violation of the GCA. Dealers aren't trying to commit violations and trying to do something illegal. So that's hopefully the move. And again, hopefully we'll see how they're going to redefine that willfulness measure and everything else. Obviously, while the deadly sin concept may go away, understand there are still going to be violations that could still get you revoked. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a new directive out, how they will direct to talk about those and everything else. Certainly, it's not a time to slack off on your compliance efforts. Everything you've done the last few years while we've been under this, where we've gotten really stringent with our compliance, where we've gotten really good at it, and we're doing everything we can to stay on top of it, make sure everything is right all the time. Keep that up. Do not stop that, because revocations occurred before no tolerance. Revocations will occur after no tolerance. It's just going to be a matter now of what is that willfulness measure, and again, what is the totality of the circumstances. And it may be, if you've done something wrong in one inspection and you get inspected a year later in follow up from the administrator, and you see you're committing more of the same mistakes and same violations, those are the kinds of things we'll see more likely will result in revocations. You'll get a chance to fix them before going to revocation. And then if you're still doing it, then that's when revocation kind of becomes the reality. So that's what we're really hoping to see out of this, is get back to kind of that kind of totality standards, and let the IOIs and let the DIOs at the field offices look at that and make those determinations and have the say. Because that was the other problem too, is a lot of times hands were tied. Under no tolerance, there was, if you see ABC, that's automatically going to go to revocation no matter what. Now we should hopefully see more of that discretion come into play and say, no, yes, they made some mistakes. No, we don't believe they're doing it willfully. They're trying to get a business. Let's help them get it right and then move forward. And then if you continue to make mistakes, okay, now there may be consequences, but still going to be violations that get you in trouble. There's still going to be the administrative active procedures, whether it's citations, write-ups, warning conferences. I would expect that's going to go away. It's just going to be a matter of that discretion coming out of how they want to apply that administrative action. I think will come back, and that will be overall good. Cool. But don't lose focus.
Yeah. In all honesty, that's, if anything, this should prove why that was like a wrong thing to do anyway, because it shouldn't have changed the way you do business.
No,
like not the law, even though they're not laws, they're administrative actions. Because obviously, we already know we can get into that, and everybody loses their head. And, no, it's a law. It's an administrative action. We know that. It's all that stuff was executive. However, it is what it is right now, and if they come out with a no tolerance policy, it shouldn't have changed anything, right? No. It shouldn't have changed the way you do your job. All that was is to scare the shit out of you, which I'm sure it did with a lot of people.
Well, that was, and I'll say it here in this platform. All that was, again, that was an effort by an administration hostile to the firearms industry that just wanted to make it as difficult and as expensive and as hard to conduct business and to stay in business as possible. That's all that was. And we're seeing, just like what we're seeing in Colorado with all the stuff that's passing in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to a dealer 2 days ago. He says, I may do this for another year, but I may be out. It's because this is getting too hard. But that's what they want. They're trying to make it. They know if they can't win on the regulatory stage, they're going to just try to continually make it harder and more difficult and drive people out, and it become less and less. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is until it ain't.
Yeah.
Hey, I think those are my closing words today. And I know we're not closing right this second, but don't steal them from me.
No. And like I said, keep an eye on, all these rules, these repeals, they talk about reviewing the brace and receiver rule and the arm brace rule and all that. They talk about reviewing those, and that's been a topic of discussion in the executive order and the task force and everything else. Let's remember, it was Donald Trump's previous administration that did this exact same thing with the bump stocks. And
he sure did.
And granted, the Supreme Court weighed in on that, and it weighed in our favor. And whether you think bump stocks are trash or not, or whatever else, the bottom line is it is still this process that we all think is crap that was still used in that instance as well to get rid of them. And it's that process that we should be raising alarms about. So same thing like talking about the task force and how what is Pam Bondi going to bring out of that. Let's not forget that, Trump did a couple of these things too, but he's not talking about that either. And that's where it's going to be on us as an industry and as a community to call that stuff out if we see it. And if it goes that way again, so again, just food for thought. I know things are better. They're looking better, still things to watch for.
Yeah. Anytime you have this many bureaucrats over you, absolutely keep an eye on it, because we also know that it doesn't matter if you're the president, things happen outside your control. So there goes that illusion of the president being the most powerful man in the world, because obviously you've got little bureaucrats saying, no, we're not going to do it, or we're going to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like who in the world would ever think that a judge could tell a president, hey, you got to go get that gang member back out of El Salvador, bring them back here. He's not a citizen, but you got to bring him back. Like, we live in the Twilight Zone, man. And I probably just got us banned, but whatever.
Probably, but that's all right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It's insane. Hey, so I know you were going to talk about more stuff than that, right?
That was what I was covering. I may have just covered it faster than we were expecting.
No, because I told you when we started, I'm like, man, I hope I don't know if I'm be able to engage, but you know how to push those buttons, Tony. Compliance. Hey, if anybody, those of you that attend our other webinars, this is literally Tony Compliance. So when you see him commenting there, that's who this guy is. Tony Compliance.
I'm dropping comments to mess with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's probably like, what kind of a name is Compliant? Is that like Italian? Compliance?
See, I was going to change it. Now I can't because you just dropped it. You like locked me into it now. Now I have
Compliance. That's what it is. Tony Compliance. Tony Compliance.
Fiance. Yeah.
I like it.
That's awesome.
Hey, no, seriously. We thank you guys for watching. We thank you for joining us. We know it's like your time is the most important asset that you have, most important thing you have. And for you to spend 27 minutes, 41 seconds with us today, we are absolutely thrilled that you did that. And Tony, what are your closing words?
Oh, it's again, it's kind of been serious. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. Just don't drop your resilience. Stay vigilant. Don't become complacent. And keep on.
Absolutely. Your mic was messing up a little bit, but I'll tell everybody, do what you know is right. That's all Tony was 100%. Saying. Do what you know is right. We've got things that are in place right now. You've been doing this for years. Just continue to do that. Do it right. Be upstanding. Be honorable. Have integrity like you already do. So just be a human being. Be a good human being. And then what I say, my closing words. You ready? You already heard them. It is what it is until it ain't. See you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.
So our businesses can thrive and not fade. Inventory checks, audits too. We're here to guide and see you through the paperwork and all the files. Together we can walk these miles. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true. Navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining through. It's the Compliance Corner for every retailer and their crew. Stay sharp, stay illegal, we know what we need to do. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we delays, we're here to guide you through the maze. Stay ahead, stay compliant, on this journey we're reliant. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true. Navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining.